So I want to talk about the concept of am I enough in context with something that's been happening in the last few days, which is, as you may know if you've had a look at any of my other videos, I sold my chiropractic business to explore being a bit more creative. So I'm still a chiropractor, I'll always be a chiropractor, but I want to get across a health message in a creative way as well. So that's what I'm focusing on in this area of my life. And to do that, I am making silly videos. By silly I mean, usually me being an idiot, but that also get a health message across that I think people need to know, that can help them. And the idea is to get it across in a silly way that people actually want to watch and people want to share. And it started with me making a video about what not to do in the gym that did very well unexpectedly, and I thought, actually this is a really good way of getting an important message across to people, because if you just stand there and say you should not do this exercise because it just puts strain on the lumbar facet joint, no one cares. Like, I don't care, no one cares. But if you act a bit slapstick, more people actually pay attention. Anyway, so I made this video about protecting your back in the morning, and it's all about being careful bending forwards in the morning, because that's how a lot of disc injuries can happen, because you put more pressure on the discs because they have a higher pressure in the morning. I've seen it hundreds of times. I've seen a lot of people come into practice and say, into my clinical practice and say, all I did was pick up the shower gel or put my socks on or feed the cat or something like that, and they end up in weeks and weeks of pain. So to try to prevent that in as many people as possible, I was sharing a message. And again, the video's done really well. I think it's been up for about 5 days. It's had about 8,000 views or something like that, and it's, I'm really pleased with how well it's doing. But I did get some negative feedback, mainly from one person who's a well-meaning physiotherapist who told me that I was giving the wrong message and catastrophizing the idea of back pain. I mean, we had quite a long dialogue through several messages, but the general gist was I was actually doing harm to people by spreading this message, because I would make them afraid of bending forwards and afraid of moving, and actually bending forwards is a normal movement. And I can totally see her point. I can see her point, but I don't completely agree with it, because I think that this is a common way that people hurt themselves. So she asked for evidence, so I sent her evidence, and then some more, and still wasn't good enough, and she was still asking a lot of questions. And this went on for a few days, and I've been dwelling on it a lot. Now I finally, I sent her a message in the end saying, look, we need to call it a day, because I don't want this. I feel like we've had a fair dialogue. I just don't want to, not interested in carrying it on. But it really made me question myself, especially at first, because I'm quite a sensitive person, and I don't like the idea of someone being upset with me. I know that sounds silly, but this is something that I'm working on. But also it made me question whether or not, is she right? Am I actually doing something? Am I actually harming people? Is this something that I need to look at? So it made me really question this a lot. I've been dwelling on it a lot for the last few days, and it's interesting because I've had 4,000 positive comments, or put likes and loves and lols and all that kind of thing. And one negative. So of course I've been dwelling on the negative. Like I appreciate the positive ones, and I've been replying to as many as I can. But have found myself probably spending too much time dwelling on the negative thing. And I can see two sides of that. On one side I think it's good. It's good for me to actually pay attention to that and not dismiss it, because ultimately, detractors and people who disagree with you, well, they may have a point. And even if you don't agree entirely with their point, you can probably learn from it, because if one person's saying it, there's probably a couple of other people who are thinking it as well. So I have taken on board what she says, and I do think she has valid points, but I still stand by it. And I came to that conclusion after really thinking about it for a lot, and to me that's been quite an important bit of development for me, because a couple of years ago I possibly would have taken down the video, or modified it in such a way to make it more palatable to the very critical people and that kind of thing. But if you dilute your message, if you believe in something, and I do believe in this message, I absolutely 100% believe in it, even if some other people might not do. This is something that I've seen for myself, I experienced myself, and I believe in it. And at some point you've got to decide to stick your head above the parapet and to stand out, knowing that people are going to shoot at you. And you know, are you ready to do? Am I ready to do this? And you know, this is why I'm making this video today, really, because I feel like I am ready to do this. I am ready to do this. You know, cautious. I think cautious confidence is probably like a way of saying it. I think there's a difference between, like, you know, constructively thinking about something, especially in the first few criticisms, you know, when you've got it, kind of got to take it on board, and it's part of your developmental process of you refine your message, and you know, could there be a better way of doing it? And part of it's just bloody dwelling on negative shit for the sake of it. And I realised that I was just doing that after a while. Yeah. Another thing, just to finish off that message, so it's about having confidence to put your head over the parapet if you believe in something, is that I went to church with my dad today, because he goes to church every Sunday. He's Catholic, and when I go to visit him, it's a nice thing to do, to take him to church. And the sermon was about, it was focused around the bit in the New Testament where a young rich guy comes up to Jesus and says, "What can I do to enter the kingdom of heaven?" And he says, "Well, follow the law," which was obviously the law at the time, you know, do not kill, do not steal, all that stuff. And the young guy says, "Well, I've done all that, I've spent my whole life doing that." So Jesus looks at him and says, "Okay, so there's one thing you're lacking, and go and sell everything you own all your riches, and then come and follow me." And the man walks away sad. And I was thinking about that, and you know, what does that mean? And to me, it's not just about riches, and this is where it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And I don't think that's about wealth per se. I think it's about what you hold most dear, especially if it's part of your identity. So for that guy in the story, his wealth was the thing he held most dear, and it was part of him, it was part of his identity, and he was willing to give up everything apart from that. What is it that I would find hard to give up? And I think part of that is the need to protect myself, the need to be liked, the need to not upset people. Yeah, I have upset people in the past, and bloody really have sometimes, usually unintentionally, or when I'm just being a bit blasé. But like I say, I'm quite a sensitive guy, and I don't want to upset people. But ultimately, if you're going to have an opinion and you're going to project it, there's going to be people that don't like that opinion. And I thought that was quite an appropriate sermon. So I've been reflecting on that. I just wanted to share that with you. What is it that you would least like to give up about yourself? Maybe it's that you would potentially benefit from doing that, though, in order to go to the next level, either to be in communion with God or the next stage of your personal evolution, or whatever way you want to interpret that. What would you find it hardest to give up? So for me, it's the need for approval. That's something I'm going to be focusing on. So if you don't like this video, joking, please like me. Yeah, so that's my thought for the day. Finish my ironing. Bye.